When I first looked at these spoons, I didn't necessarily see a story emerge from them or have a particular connection. But as I spent more time looking at an image of them and thinking about them and doing a bit of research, I started to kind of understand how much they tell us. I found that Archibald Knox, who was the person that designed these spoons, started working for Liberty and Company in 1899, the year that he actually also made these spoons. He grew up in the Isle of Man, and from his early childhood he started to develop an interest in Celtic imagery. From the little that I know about Celtic history, it seems that it's just an incredibly broad-reaching culture, both in time and geography. I think a lot of people would tend to think about Ireland and Britain when they think of Celtic culture. At least that's what mainly comes to mind for me, but really, historically, there's so much more that I don't even begin to understand. But when Knox was designing these objects, he was incorporating things like knots on the handle and the circles that wrap around the spoon, which is the kind of Celtic imagery that he had seen and studied throughout his whole life. When he signed on to work with Liberty, he agreed to their terms of anonymity, which meant that his name was not formally attached to any of his designs. They were just the designs of Liberty's. And there, the objective was to mass produce, so these beautiful objects and housewares could be made available to everyone. And then they made up these names for the different lines of metal products that they were selling. For the precious metals, they called them Cymricware, and for the pewter, they called them Tudricware. It seems like Cymric means pertaining to Wales, and for Tudric, I really couldn't find any definition. In my Google searches, it just pops up a lot of pewterware results. But by giving them these names that sounded somewhat medieval or ancient, Liberty was kind of making them seem more like a treasure or more special, or maybe they would be something that your neighbor wouldn't have, even though, of course, their objective was to make sure that your neighbor did have them too. So I guess when I started to learn about these spoons, it isn't that they reminded me of something quote-unquote personal, like Thanksgiving at Grandma's or something, but they did make me think more generally about storytelling. These spoons are such a good example of the ways in which we build memory and express a sense of history and identity on a collective level. All of the different influences and desires that came together to make these spoons are ultimately good examples of the kinds of forces that come together to help us make sense of our present.